Right, we're in. Welcome. Firstly, welcome Dr. Moneta Grover and Kerry Castledine and anybody that's listening or anybody that's going to listen to this recording of this Facebook Live. I'm Roshka Hasseldine. I'm the founder and director of Mother-Daughter Coaching International, which is a training organisation where we train therapists and coaches on how to work with mothers and daughters and if they choose to become a certified mother-daughter coach. And we also offer short courses for mothers and daughters. There's tons of free resources on the website, motherdaughtercoach.com. And we also have a Find a Coach page. So where the certified mother-daughter coaches, the graduates of the program, are listed. So we offer a place for mothers and daughters to get the help they deserve. So today, we're going to talk about labels that harm the mother-daughter relationship because there are a lot of them and they are so common we don't always realize that the harm that they're actually inflicting. But before we delve into this juicy topic, Kerry, would you like to introduce yourself? Because Kerry's one of our graduates. She's a certified mother-daughter coach and she's also our director of operations.
Hi everyone. So I work with Roshka. I have the privilege of working with Roshka. My name's Kerry. I'm from Lincoln, England. I have Kerry Castledine Coaching, but like I said, we work together, Roshka and I, dealing with the mother-daughter and Mother-Daughter Coaching International and all that it entails. So hello.
Brilliant. Welcome. And Moneta's also one of our graduates. She's a certified mother-daughter coach. In fact, she's just finished the training. So welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. Hello, I'm Dr. Moneta Grover. I am a medical doctor and have been for 28 years, but recently became a life coach. And as you've just heard, I've just qualified as a certified mother-daughter coach from Mother-Daughter Coaching International School. So thank you very much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm delighted to have you on board. Welcome. Absolutely. Welcome. So, okie dokie. Labels that harm the mother-daughter relationship. Does anybody else want to jump in or shall I just jump in?
Jump in.
Jump in?
Yeah, jump in.
Because, for me, I'm getting increasingly frustrated by it actually, because so 10 years ago, I would say, because I've been doing this work for what? 25, 30 years. And there was always mother blaming and daughter blaming. There was always that around. In a patriarchal society, you'll always have that. But in the last 10 years, I'm writing a blog series on this for Medium at the moment. There's a real increase of labels like mother wound, mother hunger, toxic mother, narcissistic mother, that have become so popular within social media, and I'm afraid also within the therapy and coaching world. I've seen far too many over the last years. I'm seeing an increasing amount of daughters saying that their therapist has diagnosed their mother as being narcissistic or toxic, and that she's got a mother wound. And even if some of these labels are used to sort of have a more systemic, i.e. meaning the environment that the mother-daughter relationship is that they live in, and the sort of patriarchal effect on it, even if that is the idea that it's the mother that is wounding, the daughter is hungry for the mother, still leaves daughters blaming the mother. Moneta, I could see you were.
I think it's a really sad state of affairs, actually. I think, the revered relationship between mother and daughter has been denigrated to labels. And, I think what it really disregards is what the mother has been through to get to that point. It completely disregards the generational themes. It disregards the culture of female service, the role of patriarchy. And, for me, it's a very one-sided part of the argument. It doesn't really, it's not fair. That's what I think.
I think we have all these young women and older women looking for answers, and they've got their struggles and they go to therapists, but these therapists aren't necessarily trained in the mother-daughter relationship. They're not mother-daughter experts, so they're able to offer their advice and guidance, but not tailored to the specific mother-daughter relationship. And that's where Mother-Daughter Coaching International comes in. We've got Roshka's 30 years experience creating the mother-daughter attachment model, which is detailed in the Mother-Daughter Puzzle, which is the book that you wrote. And once I started to read that, because I had questions over my relationship with my mother, and I couldn't find answers anywhere. I sought psychotherapy years and years ago. We had a good relationship, my mother and I. We were very close. We loved each other. But now I know that she had maladaptive behaviours, that she had taken on board to deal with what was missing in her life, which was then being passed down to me. So I couldn't understand why she was being a little bit controlling. I couldn't understand a lot of these reasons. But once I found Roshka, it was just like the sky had opened, a big light came down, shone on it all, and it was just like, wow. And this is missing. It's just missing in the world, in the therapy world, amongst mothers and daughters.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was enlightening for me to attend the course and to do the mother-daughter mapping. That was a real eye-opener. And I think really to have created and pioneered that some 30 years ago is remarkable in itself.
Yeah.
But it is very slow off the mark for people not to understand that this sort of a project and this sort of a coaching school exists, because it's a vital part of the puzzle. And I think for me, a bit like you, Carrie, when I was reading up about the course, the silent scream, the name of the book means everything. And actually, it is these people who are not heard, they have no voice, they're not understood. That means they don't feel loved, and then that leads to a whole cascade of reactions. But to bring it back to what we're talking about today, the narcissistic mother, that is a very avant-garde phrase that keeps getting perpetuated by the media, and I think it's grossly unfair.
Yeah, I actually think a lot of it's incorrect, because I've seen close to a flood, actually, an increasing amount of mothers who, and that's what I write in this blog for Medium, and I'm putting there's four, a series of 4, and the third one's going to go, I'm putting up today. Their mother, I often see the mom, and often their daughter, usually in the 20s or 30s, seeing an individual therapist. And the mother, without seeing the therapist, the daughter's individual therapist, has been diagnosed as either narcissistic or wounding or toxic. And I work with this mother. I think, where did they get that idea from? Because she doesn't really tick the boxes. Yes, she may have, like most women do, have, like we're talking about the mother-daughter history mapping, a background of being emotionally silenced, of emotional neglect. What woman doesn't, especially in, a certain generation? That doesn't mean to say she's narcissistic. So I actually think a lot of these labels are misused, and they cause way more harm. As I write, I think they throw gasoline on an already raging fire. And sentencing, and I think why I'm sort of so hot under the collar about it really, is that they're sentencing mothers and daughters to a lifetime without each other. And that is harmful too. That goes against all the research. The research says, Carol Gilligan, Jean Baker Miller, the researchers at the Stone Center, all those women development researchers, research women's development in the 1980s, 90s, early 1920s. They all said that mothers and daughters are wired for connection. So really, what this is doing is counter to what mothers and daughters need in order for their growth and development. So I really think something needs to be, we need to talk about it, and something needs to be done about it.
And this is where Mother-Daughter Coaching International comes in and has its own play, because without knowing the dynamics behind it, and like you said, Anita, the history mapping, women don't understand what's happening in their relationship with their mum. And that, like Roshka said, they're going to therapists and they're getting misdiagnosed. I think the term, narcissistic is branded about far too much. Obviously, there are narcissistic people out there, but I think this is just a label there's books out on it. There's books out on the mother wound. There's books out. There's social media. Maybe social media has helped to create this. I don't know.
I agree, actually.
Today, and people are jumping on the bandwagon because actually they've got nowhere else to go. They haven't found mother-daughter coaching. They haven't found this organisation. So they're just left in the wild. They don't know where to go and what to do about it.
And they're on these social media forums, which are like echo chambers, where they're basically, you're hearing yourself reflected back, which in that moment might feel gratifying and validating. But it really doesn't actually solve anything. It doesn't help you understand. Anita, what were you going to say?
Well, having just done the course quite recently, actually, and graduated from it, I was quite astonished to how much information exists about this subject, from the non-mother blaming side of things. And actually, there's that very famous book that you put under our nose, which I got, which more of a reference text about blame the mother no more or something.
Yeah, Paula Kaplan, The New Don't Blame Mother. She's brilliant.
That's right. And it's really excellent. But the platform that you have as part of the course is superb. It has reference and resources. We have the tutorials every week with our tutor. We have the homework, so we have to delve into it. But there's a whole library, a whole huge amounts of research journals, which of course is something that's right up my street, to look at all of this. So there's a wealth of experience that you provide and a wealth of knowledge base to support what you say. So it's very clear to me that this is something that it's a real shame that people haven't quite cottoned on as yet, but I'm hoping that they will, because it might turn the tide.
I hope so too. And the more of us that sort of say, hang on a minute, what's going on is really harmful, actually, the more people are going to listen.
So going back to that book, Roshka, by Paula Kaplan, I've got the book as well, Manita. It's phenomenal. In your experience, if we can tell the viewers, why would you say people blame their mothers? Why is it not father blaming or auntie blaming? Or, I mean, I kind of know the answer, but I think it would be great for our viewers to hear it from yourself.
Well, actually, the short answer is patriarchy, actually. Patriarchy believes that women, and therefore if we're talking about mothers in particular, are the ones who are supposed to provide all the caregiving. And that's belief. And that's why I think the therapy world particularly needs to look at this. I can see there's a question here. What's the name of this book we're talking about? It's The New Don't Blame Mother. There you go, Paula Kaplan. Brilliant book. So it's patriarchy, that belief that women are caregivers, and then are therefore responsible for provide all the not only physical but emotional care for children. That's embedded in many of the theories, human development theories, mainly created by men. Attachment theory, John Bowlby in the 1940s, Winnicott, all of them in the therapy world. So in a sense, there is theory to back this idea up, but it's still based on a male's, like if you're talking about attachment theory, a male who grew up in an upper class house in the 1940s in England. How is he going to see women, do you think? And so and Paula's got a couple of quotes like, if mum doesn't get, we will forgive dad for anything, because men are not expected within a patriarchal society to provide any or caregiving. So if he does some, oh my gosh, isn't that fantastic? Oh, he's babysat. But if mum doesn't step up to the plate just for a second, we're enraged.
Would you say that this attachment theory training is actually harmed?
I think attachment theory needs to really, the John Bowlby, and I know there've been other theorists who've moved it on, but I really think that needs to be relooked at, because it doesn't see the mum as a person. It doesn't see the mum. And as I say in the course, mothers can only mother to the level of the financial, emotional, and, practical support. And I think there's a fourth one in terms of what they have been allowed to learn about themselves. So if they've internalized this like selfless caregiving that patriarchy teaches women to be, like that's a good mom, she will also have all the negative repercussions of that. There is negative repercussions to living a selfless life. So all of that needs to be I think we really need a paradigm shift in terms of what is motherhood.
And I think there's a very interesting concept that's quite old now and quite forward thinking in its approach, which is the concept of the good enough mother. And what is that? And actually, you could take it both ways. Do you have to be a good enough mother, or is the mothering that you're doing good enough? And actually, it's a very early thought of self-compassion. That's the way I looked at that article. I liked it. I think the patriarchal society has ramifications for the daughters. The daughters often, there's a quote, isn't there? We raise our daughters and nurture our sons. And actually, that's a really insightful process and an insightful thought of what we were meant to do with our mothers of tomorrow, which is our daughters.
Yes, we raise our, we raise our daughters, but we nurture our sons. And that's the patriarchal thinking. Male needs get prioritized, men get taken care of, but women do not, and that includes the daughter.
And I think that perpetuates the mother wounds, the narcissistic mother, and so forth. You can see how the therapists have got there, but there's a missing vital bit of the jigsaw, which is the mother-daughter attachment model from you, that really nails actually what's gone on.
Yeah.
I think there was something like 125 articles on the journals, and I think we did this on the course, do you remember? And 72 of them blamed the mother from anything from schizophrenia to bedwetting. The mother was blamed for all of those medical issues.
Yeah.
It's just astonishing.
Yeah, that's in Paula Kaplan. That's the research she did. Yeah, and I think that's still going on.
Yeah.
So, this conversation is really important, because mothers and daughters actually fundamentally need each other for their emotional well-being, for the sense of developing a sense of self. And I think the other thing is, this whole mother blaming, it really plays into the patriarchal divide and rule, because that's why the mother-daughter relationship is marginalized, because it is so powerful. A mother and daughter come together, which is why I love working with mothers and daughters who are there to sort of facilitate change for themselves, for each other, and for generations to come. So the mother-daughter relationship is so phenomenally powerful to really change, in a sense, the patriarchal voice within the family, which is why I think the therapy world and the coaching world really needs to look at how they can be, what's that author? I think she writes The 7 Necessary Sins of Women.
Oh, I've just bought that book.
Yes. Anyway, she talks about patriarchal foot soldiers. I love that term, because in a sense, to some extent, that's what's going on. If we are labeling mothers as in these sort of diagnostic terms that really may not be accurate, and even if they are, it doesn't really solve anything, because it doesn't teach the daughter to understand the mum, to understand why she is the way she is. And it doesn't help the daughter understand what she might have inherited from mum.
And I think...
Sorry, Manita.
Sorry, Kerry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and then that can get passed down from daughter to her daughter, and so it continues.
It does. And then I think there's the dawn of realization, which you talk about in your mapping, Roshka, which is the line of change, where one or other, mother or daughter, suddenly sees it for what perhaps isn't quite so clear-cut anymore, and decides that they want to change things. I must admit, we were, in our course, we were encouraged to do our own mother-daughter mapping, which I did. And I was astonished what I saw. I was flabbergasted, actually, so much so that, in fact, I did take my own daughter to one side and say, I want you to have a little look at this with me, because I don't want this to be again. I don't want history to repeat itself. And it was so clear. It was horrifying and illuminating at the same time.
And I think that's what's important, because there's so many more aware young ladies at the moment, whether that's due to social media or information or access to all of it, and they're floundering. They don't know where to go with it. Our terms are, in the Mother Daughter Coaching International, is the line of change. They won't be aware that they are the line of change. They just know that something isn't sitting right with them, and they want to change it. So they start confronting mum. Mum then gets defensive. Mum's maladaptive behaviours come in. And then the daughter starts blaming mum for being controlling for X, Y, and Z. But this is where doing this course, becoming trained in it, or even having, like you said, Manita, having the mapping done yourself, you clearly start to see the generational themes. So I was able, and this was after my mother had been deceased, I was able to really forgive her and really understand her, and really wish I was able to say to her, wow, Mum, I really get why now. And the freedom of that was incredible. It was just worth its weight in gold.
And wouldn't it be better to have been able to have said that when she was alive, and to reconcile, even if you had a great relationship, just to make it even better, and just to have that empathy for your mother and understand.
So that's why I would encourage anyone who's having any difficulties with their mother. It's fixable. It's doable. It can be changed. Roshka, we've got a comment come in. Should I read it out to you?
Can you? Yes.
Yes, of course. So, hi, ladies. I have a narcissistic mother, and my father was aggressive. I understand why my mother is like she is from a trauma perspective. I am always looking to understand and learn more about generational trauma that runs through the maternal line. Can you give more information about the training you are talking about here?
Certainly. Well, yeah, Kerry.
I'll pop that in the comments,
Yeah. So, go to motherdaughtercoach.com, and then there's professional training, and it'll send you straight to the learning platform page. And it's mother-daughter attachment training.
I shall get that link up.
Which is online. It's an online training, though you have 6 in-person, like Zoom lessons with me, and 6 tutorials with one of our teaching faculties, one of our graduates, and of course a lot of homework. So it's a short course, but it's very intense.
Okay, I've just popped that up now, so anyone can go and
directly to
and have a look.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I mean, I understand my mom, though she was never officially diagnosed, she did tick all the boxes of being, rather narcissistic. But the thing is, I don't really think she could have been anything else.
Yeah.
If I look at her what I know about her background, not to mention, concentration camp, 2 years during the war. Also, who my grandmother was and why she was the way she was. So there's two, and that's what I teach, there's 2 realities. On the one hand, my mum was a very difficult person to be with. And she did silent treatment like no one does. I mean, for years, she would not not speak to you. So there's the lived experience of the daughter, which includes the understanding of mum, and in a sense coming to some peace about this is who she is and why she is the way she is. And then it's what do I need to do so that so that for me that I'm the line of change. And it might sound inconsistent, but I think those two need to stand right next door to each other.
And I think you touched on the generational themes, Roshka. I think they're hugely important because they shape, very much the identity of the daughter that's born to the mother that's had the generational theme. So, there was a lot of, in the generations before me, there was migration, and there was either migration within a country or out from a country. There was a civil war. There was unemployment, particularly if it was after migration. Somebody had a steady job in their country, was a proud head of the family, moved. They were unemployed, and that had ramifications on the paternal-maternal relationship, and that had ramifications for everything. And I think generational themes are huge, and the more you look at them, the more you uncover them.
Exactly, and I think that's where these labels completely miss the lived. And I think not just the lived, but the emotional experience of women, the experience that women have, and the emotional repercussions of war, migration, poverty, patriarchy, which we all experience, racism, all of those. And I think that bit is so easily forgotten, which is why I actually created the mother-daughter history mapping, because I was like many family therapists, I was taught to do genograms, and I just felt I really missed the true female voice about what does it really mean? What's the emotional reality of being female? And if you think about it, patriarchy wouldn't want that voice out there, because then it's like, okay, the cat's out of the bag a bit, isn't it? In terms of the harm that it inflicts, but really that's to me, that's gold.
Yes, and I think the culture and creed aspect, adds another layer to the onion, which is, depending on what your culture expects of you as a female, and it's worldwide, that's very much still the culture of female service, where you're expected to be the homemaker, the person that raises the children, rather than being the ambitious, independent, working mum. And that doesn't seem to sit well.
No.
I hear a lot of like young women now saying that if they go to work, they're bad. If they stay at home, they're bad. They can't actually find somewhere where they excel at something, and they feel penalized for whichever choice they make. Yes. That's quite apparent.
Yeah. So basically what you're describing there is a world or a society where women are not free to make a choice that's right for them.
Yeah. Because they're judged and their voice can't be heard, and they're silenced, and they're told, or they carry an immense amount of guilt. So they could make a choice and feel free in that choice. But there's the weight of society and the weight of culture and the weight of patriarchy and all this weight that sits on a woman's shoulder. And she has to be extraordinary, doesn't she? She has to do it all. She has to bake the cupcakes for the school fair, and she has to do X, Y, and Z. And she also has to be the most loving mother and get everything right. And without knowing who you are and your generational themes that are being passed down onto you, you're kind of floundering about in a big pool of water, and you there's no life raft there for you to jump onto.
Exactly. Sorry. No, you carry on.
You're right. You have to be an extraordinary type of person. Extraordinary to stand still as a mum. Yeah. And I think that just about says it all.
Yeah. Well, as we're talking, I'm reminded, because actually it's women that do it to each other. I'm reminded of, this was quite a few years ago, so it might have been 13 years ago. my daughter and I accompanied my husband on a conference it was actually Malaga, and this was an academic conference, and so and the wives and Olivia came with me. We were showing around. It was fantastic. But I remember one lunch, so we're all sitting around the table, and most of the other wives were older than me and sort of close to retirement age, and I had been the only one that had worked while my kids were growing up. And one of them asked my daughter whether she felt that I deprived her. Yeah. And it was what's she talking about? I have no idea so Olivia gave the right answer. But I will never forget that, because it was so interesting, because I think what I was seeing in those days, I was we talk a lot in the course about the uncomfortable mirror. I was actually these women uncomfortable, like in me, in the fact that I had claimed my work alongside mothering, and they had not been able to do that. And that is not a criticism. They were probably not supported, not encouraged, not allowed, so there was not enough space for these women. They saw what they had missed. But instead of honoring that.
You are so right. I have to say, these experiences, I think, are indelible. And I think, I used to try and get to the school gates at 3:30, which, as far as I'm concerned as a doctor, is in the middle of the day. And get to the school gates and run there. And the other mums would be looking absolutely unflustered, glammed up, looking fabulous. I'd look like I'd been dragged for a hedge backwards. And, they'd say, "Oh, you come from work, you poor thing. Are you still having to work?" And so it'd be an embarrassment, a moment of reflection, and then a thought. I said, "Look, actually, I love my job." And I think you have to have, but you're right, it comes from within our own ranks, and it's very much that is what we see, and we have to tackle that on top of the patriarchy as well.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I have to say it, but this new Barbie movie that's come out, I just think it's phenomenal. The new Barbie movie that's come out, I think it's phenomenal. It talks about when Ken is carrying a book on the origins of patriarchy, and it talks about patriarchy. And I'm sat there looking at all these little girls in their Barbie outfits, and I know they're going to come out and go, "Mum, what's patriarchy?" They've got to, because they've got to see it from a different lens. They're especially the older children. So I think something's bubbling. We're on a cusp. But there was one line in this film. There were some phenomenal speeches by the mum in this film, which was all related to trying to connect with her daughter. And she gave this speech about we have to be smart, but not too smart, and we have to be good looking, but not too good looking, and all of these things. And she says, but we have to be extraordinary and we have to fight for it. But there was one line by a man in a boardroom who says, "I'm a man with no power. Does that make me a woman?" And it's just full of one-liners like this. And it's tongue-in-cheek, but it actually happens and it's there. But yeah, there's something brewing with patriarchy. I think somewhere along the lines it's coming out, it's coming to the forefront, and we're taught on this course, one of your main teachings was mothers are people first, and I think that's really important to remember. We are people first. You don't really hear the term the working dad, do you?
No.
But you hear the term working mum all the time. And that's part of the patriarchy, and we just soak it in, and we don't do anything about it.
Yeah,
and it's worrying.
See, I think we can add that to another one of those toxic labels, quite frankly, because the working mum, it intimates that a woman who doesn't work outside the home but is working, taking care of the kids, isn't working. I mean, give us a break, for goodness sake. That's just beyond comprehension. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's 100%. The other thing that rings back from your course is being heard, and being understood equals being loved.
Yes.
And that resonates. It doesn't matter who you say that to, that resonates. And I think for so long, there's been the mother that isn't a person, Kerry, as you say, and she's not being heard and she's not being understood. And the daughter's not being heard and not being understood. And there you have it, conflict right there.
Yeah, both fighting for connection.
Yeah,
both fighting. Yeah.
That's the hub of it, actually.
It
You've
is,
just
Manita,
nailed the hub
you've just
of it.
nailed it. Yeah.
Patriarchy doesn't silences women and neglects women, which then sets mothers and daughters up to fight over who gets to be heard, who gets to be supported, because we don't have a world where both get heard, both get supported. At its core, that's it. Yeah.
100%.
Wow. We have been talking for nearly 36 minutes.
Wow.
We could talk longer, actually, but so let's. Oh, there's another question. Do you think that using the word patriarch is also loaded and can be used as an insult towards men? Patriarchy doesn't work for both women and men, actually. If you're talking about books, I would look at Bell Hooks, The Will to Change. I would say that is probably one of the best books. There's also Terence Real on toxic masculinity.
He also has a Netflix documentary out. I can't remember the name of it, but he's actually in one of the Netflix documentaries where he talks about that in quite detail. But I'll write about his book. Yes.
Yes.
Terence Real
and Bell Hooks, The Will to Change. I personally prefer Bell Hooks, but both. I mean, everybody. Some books talk more to some and to others. So yeah, dive into them, because that they sort of show the other side in terms of how patriarchy harms the male.
Harms the male, yeah.
Totally, it silences men. It socializes them to, I've got a little grandson, and I'm thinking, what is society going to teach him about his full-on emotions?
I'd like to answer that. I think it is not meant to be a term to put men down. I think it's meant to be a term that helps to explain the phenomenon of patriarchy that we hitherto never talk about. So we don't know what consequences it's had. And I think it's a phenomenon. It's not a personal attack on men, because as Roshka says, we see men who are also very much at the behest of what they should and shouldn't be like when they grow up, from little boys to being their father's son, the second in line in the family, and so forth. And I think it's definitely not in my way of talking something to be used against men, but it's a phenomenon, a theme to talk about.
And this whole, are you then male hating? I think also is a patriarchal ploy to, in a sense, silence women, because it isn't, as you say beautifully, Manita, it isn't about being against men at all. It is about actually women and men joining together and actually creating a new reality for all of us, and rethinking that caregiving, because patriarchy cuts off men's caregiving instinct and desires, and that actually caregiving is a human characteristic and not just a female characteristic. Thank you. This has been brilliant. So let's just summarize. You're on the. I'm just going to put in there what is, as you can tell, I'm not very good at. This is my. I'm just putting in the medium. Wait a minute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening in the meantime, I've actually listed the mother-daughter attachment training details. So if you click on that link, it'll take you to Roshka's website where you can look at doing the actual training. So if you are a therapist or a coach or a social worker, psychologist, you can join the training. There's one coming up in September and another one in October, and there's still some spaces left on those. and that's the place to join. There are payment options and payment plans, so you can choose between all out or 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, I believe.
That's true.
Yes. And then also I've detailed the Find a Coach page. So on there is listed all the Mother Daughter Coaching International's certified graduates, which are for you to choose from. We're all over the world, which is fantastic. It's a real community. It's a real tribe of people. And, you can pick where you go because it's online. You can choose who feels the most suitable for you. So that's been detailed there. And Roshka's just put her Medium details on, and we've just had another question. Where would I find that? It doesn't appear in the chat. Could you tell me what is that referring to? Yeah, what's that, Juanita? Could you let me know that, and then hopefully I can answer.
The other thing I would add with Kerry, like, yes, and that we're all over the world, which is what I love. The classes, students come from America, England, Europe,
Switzerland. I was sat in a class with people from America and Switzerland. It was amazing.
Yeah. We have a graduate in Australia. I'm actually a Kiwi from New Zealand. And no New Zealanders yet. Come on, New Zealanders, get on board. It is time. So I would suggest the details of the training.
Okay, I'll repost it.
I would suggest if you're looking for a graduate of the program, I would, most of us are online now. So if you're in England, certainly have a look in England, but look elsewhere as well, because I think the goodness of fit is the best option. Find somebody that you feel fits with you. So don't limit yourself to where you live. And I also added the medium.com at Roshka. I think hopefully they'll get to me at Roshka Hasseldyne. So at the moment, I've got the third one is coming out today, and the fourth one will come out later this week on why there is an increase in mother-daughter estrangement, which fits with what we've been talking about. And I unpack that question in these blogs, and in the fourth one, I come up with some in terms of what I've seen and actually what our graduates have seen.
It's really interesting. I've read part 1 and part 2. So if you join the Mother Daughter Coaching page, you will see where we list all updated articles and what's coming up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Final words of wisdom, advice, anything that you feel you needed to say? Anita, why don't you go? Is there anything else you wanted to say before we?
No, I would seriously have a look at this course if you are somebody who is considering coaching or therapy. I think it would leave a gap if you didn't in your offering to your clients.
Thank you. Yes, because even if you don't work with mothers and daughters, you do see women.
Yes, and every mother has been a daughter at some stage.
Exactly. And as in the therapy world, we all know that the mother-daughter relationship is always in the room. So, Kerry.
So I've noticed in my coaching room where the crossover from life coaching and mother-daughter coaching is actually quite intense. So I have clients who bring to the coaching room issues, and because I have done the mother-daughter attachment training, I'm able to advise, and they can either go on to do the mother-daughter coaching or they can stick with life coaching, but I've got the knowledge behind to sort of guide them and steer them, and I think that's invaluable. It's actually shown itself so many times already that I'm quite astounded by that.
Whoops, I think we've lost Manita. Okay, yeah, maybe I wondered if our internet went funny.
It was a little bit fuzzy, wasn't it? Yeah. Anyway. So I think that's everything. Yes, thank you, Roshka. That was incredible as always for your expertise and knowledge.
And thank you, Kerry.
You're welcome.
I'm really delighted that you found our course, and that now you're actually, our director of operations. So
I know, here I am. So our next Facebook Live is, I believe we're starting again in September. We're having a break for August. So everything will be posted and publicised in August, ready for September. And I think we were going to look at what it means to be a mother, which will be another fascinating talk. So please join us. Oh, there she is. We've got
There
her
she
back.
is back. Brilliant. Well, actually, so stay on. I'm going to end the broadcast, so just stay on so we can chat afterwards. So anyway, thank you so much, Kerry and Manita. I'm sure we'll, for those of you listening, September is our next one. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.